Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of our analysis of Inside My Mother. But before we get started, please be sure to check out our website at ignitehsc.com.au and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Let's get into the video. It's important that we do an acknowledgement of country, especially because the texts that you are studying are Aboriginal texts, and it's important to recognise the history of Aboriginal people in Australia and their importance in our future. So I would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, which is the land that we're filming this video on, and to recognise elders both past, present and emerging. And to always keep this in the back of your mind when you're studying these texts, to think about the Aboriginal history because it's very important. And if you do feel like you need to research or to understand more, it's important that you contact and read information about these issues from Aboriginal sources so you can get a fair and realistic representation of what they're about and what they mean to Aboriginal people. Let's get into it. So now if we move on to the third stanza, this is a really interesting stanza because it shows how language can be used to evoke sounds and create an atmosphere that readers can engage with and feel as if they're situated in the poem itself. So a hot wind whips up dust storms, we glimpse warriors in the mirage. So now the alliteration of wind and whips is a really interesting line because it represents the physical action of wind and whips. It gives us an insight into a landscape, a nature that is defining of Aboriginal identity, more so a defining of the Australian identity. We have a very diverse and a very distinct landscape, and Eckermann really evokes this in that wind whips line there. Now we can again connect that w sound with the warriors, which is a repetition from the previous stanza, which continues this cry to arms, which continues to put responsibility on people fighting for the Aboriginal cause. And if we connect Weigand's warriors in the mirage, there's a really interesting double meaning embedded in mirage. Mirage, of course, refers to the deception that one can see when walking along the desert, which evokes the landscape of the poem itself. But it also means something that may not be achieved or something that may not be realistic, which is a really interesting point considering what Eckermann is trying to say. She's trying to say that the Aboriginal community need to rise up, they need to break free of the suppression that they've experienced. But we may see them trying to do something, we may see them trying to do it, but often the mirage is that it may not be able to be achieved. And this is somewhat of a sobering message, particularly in the warlike tone of Eckermann's poem. And it really sheds light on the modern day difficulties that these people face in trying to reclaim and to take control back again of their own identity and their own past. Now we'll get on to the final stanza, which has a really interesting circularity to the poem. So this is the first two lines of the last stanza. Boomerang bones will return to memory, excavation holes dug in our minds. Now if we compare that to the opening stanza, which is the first and the fourth line, let's dig up the soil and excavate the past. Boomerangs will rattle in unison. Now let's focus first on the connection between boomerang bones. Interestingly, you may not necessarily use this in the essay, but it's interesting to note the really deep similarities between the two. We have BWR, BWR. The words are the same, there's just a change in return and rattle, and obviously the ending at the final part of the line. So there's an obvious connection. Eckermann obviously wants us to compare the two lines with each other. So if we do that, we have the obvious alliteration of boomerang bones, which again creates an emphasis and creates an emphasis on these two lines. And then if we compare the last two lines, memory and unison. So in the final line, boomerang bones will return to memory. Again, in the previous stanza, we talked about the sobering aspect of the mirage as something that may not be able to be achieved. And Eckermann really emphasizes that in this line. So the fact that it returns to the memory, she finds this as a very powerful ending to the poem in the sense that it's not only showing us why Eckermann thinks Aboriginal people should try to rise up and reclaim their own identity, but is also showing the consequences of that. And that's further emphasizing quite the confronting line, excavation holes dug in our minds, which, as we said before, excavate could refer to the tradition of land abuse and how that causes a deep trauma and disconnect with Aboriginal people and their landscapes. Now, if you think about the collective hour, Eckermann is not only bringing in her Aboriginal audience, but also a non-Aboriginal audience, and suggesting that if we don't respect our Aboriginal heritage, those traditions and those deep connections with land and family, the collective hour, the collective us, Australia, will feel the ramifications of it in our own memories. And by doing that, she's suggesting that it's not a bad thing to embrace both sides of our identity because they contribute to both of our collective experiences. It's important to avoid these deep severances in our identity by ignoring the Aboriginal aspect of it, and that a collective Australia is an Australia that is defined both by its Aboriginal past and its Aboriginal present, and that's a way to move forward into the future. So if we think about that then as a collective, the poem is really interesting in the sense that it's a call to arms, it's realistic about the difficulties that Aboriginal people may face in reclaiming their identity. But it also offers some hope at the end, that we can collectively look forward to a future that is defined by our Aboriginal past. And that, I feel, is the most important message in this poem, that we need to acknowledge those things, but we need to look for a way forward where the Aboriginal and the non-Aboriginal identity can mingle, and the Aboriginal identity can play a key role in shaping our modern day Australia. So that's an analysis of Unearth. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Please be sure to check out our website, ignitehsc.com.au, for more HSC resources. And please like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you do like the content, subscribe to our channel and we'll have more videos coming your way.
That's right, guys. Thanks for watching, and please make sure you check out our online resource database. We've had a team of state rank achievers and heads of English put these together for you, covering everything from essay structures and examples all the way through to craft of writing and comprehension skills. So check them out at ignitehsc.com.au, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.